Muito boa tarde a todos que estão prestigiando mais uma live do programa Herpeto Sem Fronteiras. E hoje nós temos uma atração muito especial, mas antes de trazê-la, nós vamos temos o prazer de falar para vocês que hoje nós também estamos completando um ano do programa Herpeto Sem Fronteiras. E por isso esse dia é muito especial para nós. Não é isso, Rodrigo?
É isso aí. Boa tarde a todos. Estamos aí muito felizes hoje aqui. Temos uma apresentação de alguém muito especial daqui a pouco, né? Acho que já tem bastante gente aí chegando. Já temos 26 pessoas aqui já conectadas. Né, Silvino? E aí?
Então, e para comemorar o primeiro ano do Herpeto Sem Fronteira, do canal Herpeto Sem Fronteira, que começou como um teste de laboratório e hoje já está atingindo lares do mundo todo, com convidados internacionais, né? Nós fizemos uma escolha muito boa para hoje, né? Porque além dele apresentar um pouquinho da sua carreira, o que será que ele vai trazer para nós, Rodrigo?
Vai rolar até um som especial aí, eu acho, né? Pelo que me pareceu aí da nossa conversa aí nos bastidores, parece que a gente vai ouvir uma música especial aí.
Porque a maioria das pessoas conhece o nosso convidado, o professor Laurie J, né, pela herpetologia, mas ele vai contar um pouquinho também da carreira artística dele, não é?
Tem umas coisas bem legais, inclusive pode procurar no YouTube, né? Ele tem um canal dele no YouTube, Rock and Roll.
Então, nós vamos só lembrando para todos, não deixar de se inscrever no canal, não deixar de ativar o sininho, para que o canal possa chegar a mais pessoas. E toda sexta-feira nós temos um quadro aqui no canal. Da sexta que vem, qual será o nosso quadro, Rodrigo?
Sexta-feira que vem?
Não lembro.
Eu não
lembro.
A gente tem tantos quadros, é tanta coisa que a gente faz aqui, que é difícil acompanhar.
Então, se você quer saber o que vai ter para a semana que vem,
eu quero saber.
Precisa entrar no canal e ver a nossa playlist, não é? Nós temos este quadro, que é meu primeiro projeto, que é para trazer um convidado especial sempre para contar a sua carreira. Uma vez por mês nós temos esse quadro. Nós temos o quadro Herpeto Livre, que é o da próxima semana. Né? E nós temos o quadro Herpeto Bancas, já convidando a todos que têm alunos para defender um TCC, uma dissertação, um mestrado ou doutorado em herpetologia e quiser usar a estrutura do canal, quiser a nossa, que a gente transmita ao vivo, a gente pode conversar. Então, será um prazer mostrar aqui no canal um pouquinho do que cada um está produzindo neste Brasil, em termos de herpetologia.
Sim, amigos também que estão aí, né? A galera toda que está aí nos assistindo, né? Temos 57 pessoas aí já assistindo. Tem muitos colegas, professores aí das universidades, dos programas de pós-graduação. Convidem seus alunos, né? Convidem, né? Falem com seus alunos aí para a gente transmitir aqui, né? Ou se quiserem transmitir só a parte da apresentação do aluno, né? Se os membros da banca se sentirem meio incomodados, né, com a transmissão, né? De qualquer forma, a gente pode transmitir aqui, né? Dessa forma também divulga mais os trabalhos, interage com mais pessoas. Acho que seria uma grande oportunidade, né? Nós já temos aí, quem consultar no canal, né, Silvino, pode ver lá várias defesas que já foram transmitidas, né?
Inclusive, se você for promover um simpósio de herpetologia ou ecologia e quiser também que a gente faça a transmissão, será um prazer. Então, a intenção do canal é divulgar a ciência, divulgar a herpetologia. é tornar mais transparente para todos, né? Então, a gente gostaria de, quanto mais atividade tiver, a gente já tem uma equipe de bastidores aqui capaz de coordenar todas as transmissões para a gente, tá? Agora a gente já está chegando a 71 pessoas ao vivo, né? Então já está quase na hora da gente começar. Lembrando que depois da apresentação do professor Laurie Vitt, vão entrar alguns convidados especiais aqui para fazer algumas perguntas ao vivo ou um elogio, que achar interessante, né? Então, não esqueçam de se inscrever no canal, de ativar o sininho, e depois da nossa vinheta, né, Rodrigo? Nós podemos chamar o nosso convidado, que já estamos com 75 pessoas ao vivo agora, então acho que já podemos tocar a nossa vinheta, né? Para chamar o nosso convidado. Então, vamos lá. E agora vamos pedir para o Guilherme trazer o nosso convidado, o professor Laurie Vitt. Muito boa tarde, professor Laurie Vitt.
Boa tarde, Laurie.
Boa tarde. Eu acho que eu tenho mais amigos brasileiros do que aqui. Não tem muitos aqui nos Estados Unidos.
Que bom, porque boa parte da sua carreira foi feita aqui no Brasil, né? Com seus amigos brasileiros. Estão todos prestigiando.
Sim. Agora está pronto para a apresentação?
Isso. Podemos começar a sua apresentação, Laurie. Pode preparar.
Sim,
e fique à vontade. Já estamos com 81 ao vivo com a gente. Muito obrigado por estar prestigiando esta live. Ok. It's okay.
All right. Muito bom. Eu tenho palavras em português para vocês, e eu vou falar em português, mas meu português não é muito bom. Tá ruim. Mas talvez vocês não tenham problemas. Let's see, I think I missed a thing. Yeah. Oh, no. Okay, I'm mais organizado. Esse computador é pouco devagar. Quando eu fui muito jovem, só com mais ou menos 4 anos, what's the problem here? Tem problema aqui. Quando eu fui jovem, só tive 4 anos, eu peguei cobras e sapos no estado de montanha, quando eu fui muito jovem, e sempre observá-los em seus habitats naturais leva-me a fazer muitas perguntas. Por exemplo, por que os lagartos perdem suas caudas? Por que alguns lagartos comem formigas e outros não? Por que as cascavéis têm chocalhos? E muitas outras perguntas. Eu acho que é muito importante o que essas são perguntas de porquê. Para fazer pesquisa, é muito importante que você usa perguntas de porquê. no estado de montanha, tem essa aqui, perto de Billings, Montana, uma área do sul de montanha, e lá só tem 3 ou 4 meses quando é possível para pegar répteis e anfíbios. Habitat natural aqui, como isso, tem muitas pedras e foi esse tipo de área que tem cobras e lagartixas. Mas não foi muito fácil para pegar eles lá. Por exemplo, tem crotalas verdes, só S. cascavel, Colubra constrictor, Thamnophis elegans, Thamnophis cirtalis, e Pituophis sei e Heterodon nasicus, e mais uma cobra muito bonita, essa aqui, Lampropeltis gentilis. Essa espécie foi mais ou menos rara, mas alguns lugares foi fácil para pegar. E só tem 2 espécies de lagartos. Phrynosoma hernandezi foi raro, e Scalopus graciosus que foi comum. Só isso. Mas, como alguns jovens herpetólogos mantinham alguns animais presos no meu quarto, incluindo répteis muito perigosos, como Bitas gabonica, Bitas raiatans e muitas outras. Foi muito perigoso e foi muito estúpido para mim, mas foi só 13 ou 14 anos. E quando terminei o ensino médio, entrei na faculdade. Lá trabalhei como músico profissional para pagar meus estudos, incluindo mestrado e doutorado. Por sorte, eu cresci em uma família musical. Na esquerda foi grupo muito popular na áreas do oeste dos Estados Unidos. Nós viajamos para mais ou menos 4 anos, muitos lugares, e foi difícil para estudar, porque sempre fui viajando com o grupo. E direito foi um grupo no estado de Arizona quando eu fui trabalhando no doutorado. Oh no, what is this? I've been thrown out. I'll get back in here. There we go. Okay. E aquele grupo foi um grupo muito bom. E eu para lá e aqui muito lá para lá. E algumas musicians usam muitas drogas e tem muitos problemas, mas eu não tinha esse tipo de problemas. Não tinha. E mas foi na pós-graduação que passei a ter interesse pela história natural dos lagartos, e depois para ecologia e comportamento. Meu primeiro pós-doutorado foi no Brasil com Paulo Vanzolini, no Museu USPA, e ele foi muito interessante. Ele foi difícil para algumas coisas, mas foi muito bom para outras coisas. Lá fui enviado para estudar lagartos em Exu, Pernambuco, e eu nunca sabia nada de Nordeste. E quando eu cheguei lá, foi pouco de chuva e depois não tive chuva para mais ou menos 10 meses. A Vanza queria uma coleção e eu aproveitei meu tempo livre para estudar o que queria sobre os lagartos. E para mim, todos foram muito interessantes, como Diploglossas lessening e Polycris cutirastras e outras espécies. Mas em minhas apresentações consistem em coletar dados sobre morfologia, reprodução, dieta e temperatura corporal dos lagartos, além da temperatura do ar e do substrato. Foi muito simples, que coletei cobras e identifiquei como predadoras de lagartos. O mais comum lagarto do Brasil, não? Esse aqui é a maiva. E foi muitas coisas interessantes no Exu. E acho que tem bastantes coisas interessantes em outros lugares no Brasil também para vocês. Tem muitas coisas para vocês. Brasilis quincas heathi foi uma das que mais me chamou a atenção, pois além de ser vivípara, tinha placenta, funcionalmente semelhante à placenta dos mamíferos eutérios, com quase um ano de gestação. Aqui tem a placentum, a placenta acima os jovens. Aqui tem foto de jovens terminal e quando eles crescem, acho que só precisa um ano para adulto. Essa aqui foi a coisa o mais interessante disso foi a placenta, porque foi pouco diferente de mamíferos, mas funcionalmente semelhante. Outra coisa interessante para mim foi esta gecko, Ligodactylus plugii. Além de ter almofadas escansorial na ponta dos dedos, semelhantes aos outros geckos, tinha também alfumaras da extremidade de cauda, mesmo aquelas regeneradas. Aqui tem uma Ligodactylus aqui sem rabo. Essa aqui é terminal de rabo. E essa aqui, mesma coisa, mas maior, aqui muito maior. E aqui tem dedo, e aqui tem cauda regenerados, e última tem a mesma coisa de isso, mas por isso. E no ano 86, tive a minha primeira experiência no Cerrado, em Vilhena, Rondônia. Foi quando tive nova estrada lá. Lá vasculhamos formigueiros de formiga cortadeira e encontramos microblíferos, ainda não descrito. No ano 89, quando escavamos formigueiros em Alto Araguaia, Mato Grosso, encontramos novamente os microblíferos e descobrimos que eram comuns nos formigueiros. Foi muito fácil para pegar esses. E este animal foi descrito por Miguel Rodrigues em 96 como microblíferos atícolas. Ainda tem muitas espécies novas no Brasil para vocês pegar. E trabalhar no Alto Araguaia não foi fácil. Estradas de terras, pontes de madeira muito perigosas, e reclamei para o Vanzolini. Ele olhou para mim e perguntou: "Você chega lá?" Eu disse: "Sim." Ele respondeu: "Então foi bom caminho." Este era o Vanzo naquela época. E quando trabalhei no Rio San Juan, na Nicarágua, a situação não era fácil. Construímos o nosso acampamento com troncos de árvores e cobrimos com folhas de palmeiros. Nós tivemos muita pouca comida, só feijão, arroz, e depois nós pegamos peixes pequenos no rio e come todas as coisas. Para pouco tempo nós fomos pensando que precisa comer cobras e lagartixas, mas nós fomos na outra lado do rio, no Costa Rica, para pegar pouco comida. E meu aluno de pós-graduação, Dick Durkee, ele não gostou muito deste acampamento. Foi difícil para ele. Foi difícil para todos, mas ele teve mais problemas. Floresta de Nicarágua, como isso aqui, e foi Isla Diamante, onde nós trabalhamos perto ilha, Isla Diamante. E lá tive muitas espécies bonitas, como essa aqui, Basilisca plumifrons. Esta lagartixa foi mais ou menos grande, não muito grande, mas mais grande de mais espécies lá. E esta espécies pode atravessar na água, acima na água, muito rápido para o outro lado. E também tem isso, Batrixas chega lá, uma cobra muito críptica. É difícil para pegar essa cobra no dia, porque ele fica sem movimento no áreas como os cores da cobra. E foi algumas lagartixas interessantes. Essa aqui, Gonatoris albigularis, foi muito comum. Essa aqui não foi comum, no Protherium nasutum, uma cobra bonita para mim, nova. E já na floresta do Equador, estudamos Urocentrum flavaceps. E essa lagartixa foi bem interessante para mim, para muitas coisas. Eu tive um aluno, Vitt, e ele foi nas árvores para capturar lagartixas. Foi fácil capturar cada individual, fechando todas as aberturas na árvore, exceto uma, e colocando uma armadilha sobre o buracão restante. Esta árvore tivemos muitos buracos e Urocentron sempre vai dentro essas. Meu português acho que mais pior de poucos minutos atrás. Eles viveram em grupos familiares com dois machos com testículos pequenos e sem coloração e várias fêmeas e individuais imaturas. Foi um macho como essa aqui na esquerda, com cores de cabeça e com testículos grandes. E também eles têm esse tipo de rabo. E algumas pessoas acreditam que a cara é usada para defesa, mas suspeito que seja usada para ganhar calor, especialmente na estação chuvosa. Ainda ninguém estuda isso, mas acho que se usa histologia para examinar o rabo com microscópio. Vai ser muitas capilários dentro do rabo para sangue. E o fêmea de urossante, como isso, pouco mais pequeno e com cores pouco diferentes, mas ainda tem o mesmo tipo de rabo. Esse aqui é um fêmea aberto com ovos no oviducts. Tem shell nas ovos. E essa espécie sempre tem só dois ovos. E ovos muito grandes. E uma família de esta lagartixa sempre tem alguns grupos com idade diferente. Dois pequenos, mais dois mais grande, mais dois mais grande, etc. Minha esposa, Janely Caldwell, ela foi atrás e eu recebemos grandes financiamentos para estudar biodiversidade na Amazônia. E assim iniciamos nossa parceria com Teresa Vila Pires. Viajamos geralmente de barco para locais remotos, onde construímos acampamentos na floresta. Esta viagem só foi 4 pessoas, 3 fêmeas e mim. Mas foi muito bom. A Amazônia, com isso, Vocês sabem muito mais de Amazônia do que eu. E lá nós construímos acampamentos na floresta. Este aqui é o acampamento do, eu acho que foi Acre. Então, vamos trazer tecidos para sequenciamento também foram coletadas. Muitas pessoas já usou nossos tecidos e se alguns brasileiros querem usar, só escreve Museu de Louisiana, LSU, Louisiana. E essa é a nossa máquina de lavar louça e roupas no Acre. Foi muito simples. E uma vez, quando nós tivemos muitas chuvas, foi destruído todo. Para poucas viagens, nós tivemos uma coisa para recarga de equipamentos eletrônicos com energia solar. Isso permitiu usar sondas de temperatura e baixar os dados para o computador. Isso foi muito bom, mas foi difícil dentro da mata, porque não tem muita light. Forgot the word for light, anyway. Tem muitas coisas interessantes. Essa foi talvez cerrado, não fez bem no laser. Mas para mim, essa aqui nós pegamos um lugar. Essa foi, acho que foi Amazonas. E uma lagartixa muito interessante. Elas ficam alta nas árvores, perto da água, e elas jump para a água e vai para a água. E essa aqui é a nova Standea. Foi uma anel muito interessante com azul. Aqui a cobra muito bonita, Rhinobothrium lentiginosum. Nós coletamos talvez 3 ou 4 dessa cobra, sempre acima da terra, de noite. E tupinambas longilíneas, nós pegamos poucas no Acre. E essa aqui, Podomaites juruazensis, que Teresa escrito. Essa aqui uma gimnoptalma pequeno, sempre perto da água, mas não dentro da água com outra Podomaites. E a Kentropex alta amazônica tem 2 ou 3, 4 espécies de Kentropex. Essa aqui para mim foi interessante, mas eu gosto do Kentropex muitas, todas as espécies. E Às vezes nós pegamos coralos. Esse aqui é jovem de coralos Batesia. E essa aqui é Enealioides palpebralis, uma lagarta que é muito difícil para achar. Muito críptico e nós só coletamos, acho que duas, e acho que Teresa pegou tudo. E muitas espécies de gymnopalmidae, como Cercosaura argulis, macho aqui. Essa aqui foi no Equador. E algumas espécies de Bacchia, difícil para pegar, mas eu acho que é comum, só difícil para pegar. E Enealis lichii, essa aqui é difícil para pegar no dia, porque é muito críptico, mas de noite eles ficam nas folhas acima, mais ou menos 2 metros de alto, e de noite, como luz, aquela lagartixa tem mais ou menos branco dentro, muito fácil para ver dormindo. E às vezes nós pegamos cobras grandes, perigosas, como essa aqui, Laquissas, e tem Fred França, e Dan Shepard, e eu. Acho que a cabelo que eu tenho é muito estranho, não? E por que Fred e Don estão relaxed? E aqui é Guarino Collie, quando eu ainda tive cabelo em cima da cabeça. No ano 2 recebemos financiamento para trabalhar no Cerrado e nós usamos algumas estudantes brasileiros e americanos. Uma área que eu acho que foi muito interessante é aquelas dunas da areia do Jalapão. Encontramos um pequeno lagartixa, Coleodactylus, talvez brachistoma, vivendo no folhiço em áreas baixas. Este é um microambiente muito árido e estudos comportamentais e de ecologia térmica desta lagartixa ainda precisam ser feitos. Vocês podem pensar algumas perguntas para responder isso. Essa aqui é Coleodactylus de lá. Sem cores, mas foi vivendo nas áreas com poucas folhas nas dunas. E nas veredas lá, tem Kentropex mais ou menos broctiana, só dentro das veredas. No Cerrado tem Gymnodactylus, é um bom exemplo de um projeto paralelo durante pesquisas de biodiversidade. No Cantão, em Tocantins, estas espécies vivem nos sistemas de circulação do ar de grandes cupinzeiros. Minha esposa está fazendo alguma coisa com cupinzeiro, eu não sei. E medimos a temperatura dos cupinzeiros e demonstramos que durante os dias quentes, esses lagartos permaneciam dentro, onde a temperatura era mais baixa. À noite, ficavam dentro dos cupinzeiros e raramente saíam. Esse aqui é um exemplo dos dedos de temperatura e eu vou usar, let's see if I can find it. Aqui tem dados de 4 cupinzeiros e essa aqui mais ou menos mesma, e aqui, e aqui, e aqui, temperaturas dentro os cupinzeiros e outras que vai alto, temperaturas acima cupinzeiros e aquelas coisas aqui direito preta e temperaturas de gimnodáctilas, mais ou menos mesma de interior de cupinzeiros. Outras espécies de cerrado, essa aqui, Bothrops mugeni, para mim, uma espécie muito bonita. Eu gosto desta cobra muito. E muito comum em algumas áreas também. E essa aqui é Philodrus matogrossensis. Eu acho que é a mais bonita espécie de Philodrias. E a Vanzosauria savinicola, uma lagartixa bonita e muito comum em algumas áreas. E eu tenho alguns conselhos para jovens estudantes. Passem muito tempo no campo, observando e capturando animais que lhes interessam. Isso é muito importante, porque as perguntas que você talvez precisa, os animais sempre apresentar as perguntas para você. Se você fica no campo observando e capturando animais, usa suas observações de campo para elaborar experimentos e testar suas ideias. Se disponíveis, usa dados comparativos para examinar padrões entre espécies. Se você observar coisas que não são consistentes com a teoria, ou que são desconhecidas, busque explanação e nunca assuma que a teoria que você estava testando era o correta para a sua pergunta. Seus resultados podem ajudar a mudar a teoria se necessário. Finalmente, ser a pessoa mais crítica de seu próprio trabalho. Isso aqui é muito importante. Quando vocês escrevem manuscritos para publicação, precisa mais crítica de seu próprio trabalho. Então, relaxe e curta seu tempo. Realizar uma boa pesquisa pode ser uma tarefa fácil. Se você tiver uma boa formação em biologia geral, e se você prestar muita atenção aos animais que você estuda. Esse aqui é porcozinhos e bem relaxed. E boa sorte. Se você tem perguntas que eu não tenho hoje, você pode mandar um e-mail para mim. Então, I'm back.
Legal, maravilhosa palestra, apresentação, Laurie.
Yeah,
muitos elogios.
Meu português foi mais ou menos ruim, não?
Estava ótimo,
Muito bom.
Yeah.
Entendemos tudo. Muito bem.
Bom,
estamos todos muito felizes.
Tem muitas pessoas aqui, não?
126 pessoas assistindo.
Ao vivo.
Você consegue ver aqui na tela aqui o número 126.
With questions, it would be best if the question is asked in Portuguese, if one of you translates it to English. That'll make it.
Yes.
To make sure that I know exactly what the question is.
Yes.
Okay. I'm ready for questions.
Ok. Então vamos começar, não é? Vamos começar a sessão de perguntas, elogios, reclamações. Então vamos chamar primeiro um ao vivo que já entrou aqui. Pode ser, Rodrigo? Então quem nós vamos chamar agora? Quem entrou ao vivo aqui, está aqui, né? Então, vamos chamar o professor Guarino Colli, que foi...
então,
scary, Guarino, tudo bem?
Tudo bom?
Tudo bom?
Meu amigo, não.
Sim.
E o Guarino, aqui, eu tenho menos, como você. Sim, eu tenho mais pouco aqui.
Laurie.
Yes.
Os biólogos, herpetólogos, muitos não querem ir mais para o campo. They don't want to do field work.
Yeah.
Eles querem os seus dados, os tecidos, os dados de distribuição geográfica, os dados ecológicos. They want your data, distribution records, morphological measurements, gut contents, reproductive data.
Yeah.
É mais fácil publicar um trabalho usando metadados numa boa revista do que você passar um ano no campo coletando dados para publicar. Sim. It's much easier to publish in a high-quality journal a global-scale work using metadata than, spending 1-2 years doing field work.
Yeah.
So, where is this gonna end?
It will never end. Yeah, the data that I collected many years ago is being used all the time. We have another paper that we just submitted on niche analysis, and it's a pretty interesting paper, but it's very difficult to understand because of the statistics that were used by we have an Argentinian working with us, and he's a very good statistician, and the statistics for me is beyond belief. You know, it's very easy to get removed from the data. You know, it's very easy to calculate things and then calculate things based on the calculations and calculate things again based on the calculations, and you sometimes wonder how real your results are, even though they're statistically significant. So I think about that a lot when I look at analyses that especially ones that I'm involved in, because I'm always a skeptic.
So is this a different kind of science?
Yeah, I think now it's very different now than it was when I was in the field, and you know, now a lot of people are much more interested in biogeography and reconstructing biogeography, and to me that is really an interesting way to use phylogenetics. You know, to me, just generating a phylogeny is kind of boring, but when a phylogeny is used for things like biogeography, then it becomes really, really interesting, and especially when the phylogenies are time trees, so you have a reasonable idea of when divergences occurred, and so I think that's a really, really interesting direction that this kind of science has gone. But I still think it's really important for everybody to spend a lot of time in the field, because you see the animals, you see what they do, and you often discover things that you never would have discovered otherwise.
Yeah, something that really amazes me is how much you know about natural history. And once I thought about it, and we use pitfall traps a lot.
Yeah.
But, during most of your work, you were collecting the animals by hand. So
yeah,
you were observing the animals before catching them. So
right.
I think you learned a lot about that. So we're losing that.
Yeah.
In herpetology.
Yeah, and even here in the United States, when I was at Oklahoma, we did some work for the Fish and Game Department in Oklahoma, and we used trap systems for those, and it was kind of okay because we had a lot of time to spend out walking around, you know, also because we weren't actually collecting the specimens, we were just recording them. But you know, when we were in the field with you and with Teresa, every animal that we collected, we then took to our field camp and opened them, looked at reproductive data, opened them for diets and so on. And so we didn't have the time to spend out actually watching the animals. And that is, I think that's kind of unfortunate because it's easy to miss some really interesting things.
Yeah. So there are many other people that want to make questions. So the last one is, when are you coming back?
Do you think I'll be arrested if I come back?
No, of course not.
Yeah, I trust you, but I don't trust the IBAMA, and I don't trust the Policia Federal. No, I might come back. I'll answer your question. I might come back, and especially once this virus is more under control. It's pretty much under control in the United States now. But, you know, we need to be sending vaccine all over the world. And, you know, Jan and I got our vaccines about 2 months ago, I think, or 6 weeks. And, you know, it's like freedom to have the vaccine.
Yeah. All right. Good seeing you.
Yeah, good seeing you.
Obrigado,
Tchau.
Guarino. Obrigado por ter participado aqui com a gente. Agora vamos buscar uma pergunta do chat. Não é isso, Rodrigo?
Eu acho que sim, já tem bastante gente jogando perguntas. Ó, Caio Melo perguntando qual eram os nomes dessas bandas.
Okay, I have
Yes.
a YouTube channel, and all of the recordings that I've done are on that YouTube channel. So I will send a link to Salvino for the
Okay.
YouTube channel.
Ok.
O Vitt, ele tem um canal, né, no YouTube. É só vocês também digitar, né? Laurie Vitt,
Sim.
já encontra o canal,
Yeah.
né? Tem
muitas
bastantes
músicas.
muitas músicas legais lá para vocês
E
curtirem.
aquelas músicas são elétricas. E eu uso todos instrumentos. Guitars, bass. I have a synthesizer that I use occasionally.
Sim.
And I do all of the voices. So the only thing that I do not do are drums. I can't play drums.
Só não toca a bateria, o resto faz
Yeah.
tudo sozinho. Olha aí.
Legal.
Outras habilidades também de um herpetólogo.
Então, agora...
Gente, ó, comentando, né, com todos aí, vocês estão assistindo, estão gostando aqui da palestra, dá um joinha aqui embaixo, né, dá uma curtida, isso é bom para nós, isso incentiva a gente para cada vez mais estarmos também trazendo novos convidados, né, a gente fica feliz com isso e pretendemos trazer cada vez mais pessoas, né, para conversar com vocês aqui.
E lembrando, né, Rodrigo, que no final desta live, o Laurie vai tocar uma música, vai cantar uma música para nós, dele, exclusivo, mas só no final da live. Então, agora, nós vamos chamar mais um convidado aqui para você, Laurie, o Daniel Mesquita, para fazer uma pergunta ao vivo. Conhece?
Daniel, tudo bom?
Hello, Laurie. How's it going?
Good.
I'm happy you're fine. Yeah. Hello, Laurie. I'm kind of excited to ask you to tell you some things I bet I never told you. Like, I first met you probably 25 years ago.
Yeah.
In Brasilia, in a restaurant called Cacareca, the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
And at this time, I was just an undergrad, starting my master's with Guarino, and it was like it's a kind of almost a dream. Like we have a lot of ecologists in Brazil now. At this time, we don't have this amount, and you're always one of the persons that most know about our species, our lizards especially. And it was very nice to meet you at this time. And at this time, you gave me your email and said, if you need a manuscript, just ask me. I could send you at this time we don't have PDF, I think. You just have to send the reprints. And I asked you, I don't remember how much, but a few, and you sent me probably 150. And the funny thing is, like, I have a bunch of friends now. Some are not even herpetologists, and you did this to a lot of people in Brazil, even young students. Like, this encouraged a lot of people. Like, it was very nice. I was really happy about it. And after this, I have a chance to work with you, to collect with you in many places: Jalapão, Cantão, Alta Floresta, think we spent 10 days just drinking beer in Alta Floresta. You remember? And to Oklahoma and many places. Like, it was very nice contribute to you. Let's go to questions now. Like, I'm not gonna ask you a tough questions. I'm just like you're always a person that likes a lot the natural history, like to observe the lizards. And if you want to choose, like, from all lizards you know in Brazil, if you want, there's one that you would like to study but you didn't study, which one you're gonna choose? And also, if you want to collect in another place in Brazil, where you would like to collect and study?
I think that the lizard that I always wanted to study was Crocodilurus. And I've never been in a place where they were really common. I was in one place where we found a few, but it would have required spending really a lot of time just sitting in a chair and watching trees and watching the water. And I think they're pretty interesting lizards, but I've collected a couple, but never really had the chance to study them. And as for places that I would like to go, I think that one of the most interesting places that I've been in Brazil, and the most difficult place, was Serra. Let's see, it was. Let's see, what's the name of it? It was the military base.
Cachimbo.
Yeah, Cachimbo. Yeah. Yep. And when we went in by helicopters, that was really an interesting place. But the insects were so bad there. They ate us alive. I mean, we came back all swollen up from insect bites, and we had cloth all over us and everything else. And Guarino and I caught 2 giant fish that we brought back to the camp. And I caught one I had a little kind of cane pole, a really crappy, really bad fishing pole. And I put a little bit I caught a small fish and cut that up and put a piece of that small fish on the hook. And I almost immediately got something on it, and I jerked it, and it threw the fish up on shore, and it got off the hook. And Guarino was chasing it around up on the shore, and he finally caught it. And then I caught another one of those. And so we had smoked fish for about 3 days until the fish rotted so much we couldn't eat it. But that's an area that I think is really, really interesting. And it's nice because it's a military base. And so, you don't have, farms next to where you are, and you don't have people coming in hunting and all of that kind of stuff. I'd love to work at that place again, but you have to take a lot of insect repellent. And the bees. Yeah, the bees were really bad there. The African bees, everything was covered with bees. And, that's a little bit dangerous because, it's an area that has a lot of big rocks and so on. And it would be very easy if you didn't pay attention to disturb some of those bees.
Yeah, I remember. I was supposed to go to this place, but you just left before and said, no, this is too miserable. This not a lot of animals and a lot of insects. And you went to the Paraná. Remember Paraná?
Yeah.
It was this time. Yeah, it was. Just to finish, I'm really glad to talk with you. I hope to go to US soon, probably at the end of the year. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see you. If the pandemic is okay, I bet you.
Let me add one thing. It is interesting. I'm 75 years old, and one of the things that I really like is that the people that I've worked with before, you and Guarino, and many people, Teresa, all of the people, Bill Magnuson, Albertina, all of the Brazilians that I've worked with are doing better science than I ever did. And that's good. That's the way it should be. You know, every generation should be doing better and better science. And it's really nice for me to see a lot of Brazilians doing good science, because when I first started with Vanzolini, Vanzo was very good at keeping other people from becoming good scientists. And, you know, even when Guarino first went down and visited Vanzo, you know, at one point, Vanzolini decided he didn't like Guarino. And I don't know why. I've never known why. And, you know, many years ago, I think Vanzo decided he didn't like me. And I think the reason he didn't like me is because I took Guarino as a student at UCLA. And, you know, that's just, I guess that's a couple generations back, the way people kind of thought. You know, they kind of worked as though they were, you know, the top dog, and therefore everybody else should be held back. And so it was really nice for me to see a lot of Brazilians doing really well in science.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Let's allow the other people ask you. See you, man.
Yeah,
thank you, Daniel. Obrigado, Daniel.
Obrigado, Rodrigo.
Obrigado, Daniel. Então, agora vamos buscar uma pergunta, um elogio no chat do Beto. Pergunta. Cecília Vieira, por favor, Rodrigo, pode ler.
Então, vamos lá. Cecília está perguntando, né, Laurie? Com base em dados de dieta.
Yeah. Okay. I would be surprised if any lizards eat mutilids regularly. They might occasionally eat them. But in all the lizards that I've looked in, both in the United States and in Brazil, mutilids are extremely rare. And we did some experiments with a large lizard in South Carolina, a large skink. When we looked at diets of that skink, we didn't find, I don't know what I did. Oh, I know what I did. We didn't find mutilids, but we found every other insect practically, and mutilids were active at the same time as the lizards. And so we set up an experiment where we put mutilids in with lizards, and what we discovered was that some lizards would never attempt to eat one. Some lizards would try to eat one, and when they tried to eat it, they would bite it. And mutilids have a really hard exoskeleton. And, you know, they're like a rock. You can stand on them and they won't break. And, you know, they just walk away. And the lizard would manipulate it in its mouth because it didn't crunch, you know, it didn't break the exoskeleton. So they'd move it around in their mouth. And during that time, the mutilid would stick its stinger in the tongue of the lizard and sting it and bite the tongue and cover the tongue with some of those hairs that are on the body. And the lizard would spit out the mutilid, and then the lizard would spend about a half an hour rubbing its mouth on the ground, and then they would never again eat a mutilid. And so the bright colors of mutilids identify them to lizards, and if a lizard ever tries to eat one, it'll never eat one again. But you never know. But I suspect mutilids are going to be rare in any lizards.
Legal, legal. Vamos ver o que temos de comentário no chat, Guilherme. A Thaís Barreto Guedes. Desde minha graduação que leio e cito todos os trabalhos do Vitt. O conheci em Belém em 2006. Foi ótima a palestra. E foi ótimo ver a tentativa de falar português para nossos alunos.
So, okay. Yeah, so this is not a question.
No, it's not a question. Yeah. It's just to...
Tudo bom, Thais?
Yes. Yeah. People are very happy that you are trying to speak in Portuguese.
Yeah. Yes. Temos uma pergunta aqui do Bruno. Qual sua perspectiva para os estudos de lagartos em topo de árvore?
Sim.
É um campo promissor?
Sim, para isso, precisa um lugar que tem trilhas na topo de árvores. E tem algumas no Equador, eu acho que vai muito interessante para estudar lagartos em topo de árvores, como o centro, nós só fazemos poucas com eles, e lagartixas como anolas puntadas, anolas, several outras anolas que usa o topo de árvores, mas precisa trilhas dentro das árvores para isso. Talvez para usar as coisas que tem câmeras, não conheço a palavra para isso, mas eu acho que é um lugar muito interessante e um lugar onde nós sabemos mais ou menos nada.
Viu, Bruno? Temos todos para descobrir sobre os lagartos de dossel. Agora, vamos chamar uma convidada ao vivo aqui, uma colega sua, Vitt. Então, que entre a Tereza Cristina. TC.
TC, tudo bom?
Hi, Laurie.
Hi, how are you?
So nice to see you and to hear your talk.
Yeah, nice to see you.
And yeah, long time we don't see.
Yeah.
I would like to make some comments first in Portuguese, ok? Eu quero aproveitar para comentar. Eu tive a oportunidade de trabalhar com Laurie em vários trabalhos de campo, e sempre foi muito bom com ele e com a Jane. Eu aprendi com ele e foi uma ótima experiência que eu tive. E ele realmente contribuiu demais com a formação de herpetólogos no Brasil e com o conhecimento dos lagartos. Então, realmente é uma pessoa que eu admiro, que eu tenho muito prazer em ter convivido com ele. Laurie, I would like also to ask you, maybe you can tell us some story about one of the most difficult things you had in the field, your experience in the field in Brazil, which was one of the most situations you had.
I can barely hear you, and I think you're asking what was the most difficult thing I had to do?
Exactly.
Yeah,
in the field.
In Brazil, in the field.
Oh, that's a good question. I think the most difficult field work was cachimbo because of the insects, but it was difficult because of the insects, but it was also easy because we traveled there by helicopter. But I think Acre was a little bit difficult because we were a long ways from the town and it was warm, and there were a lot of mosquitoes there. But I think every place I've worked has things that are difficult and things that are easy. So I see Renus in the background. Hi, Renus.
Hi there.
Good to see you. Yeah, so everywhere I've had things happen in the field that were dangerous. I've been in, I think, a couple car wrecks in Brazil. One time on the Rio Xingu, when we were leaving, we had our truck packed, and we had everything in our truck, and we had 3 vehicles, and the road was wet, and it was a clay road, red clay road, and it was real slippery, and there were a lot of hills, and we tried to get up one hill, and we got almost to the top, and we started sliding backwards, and there was a big canyon off to the side. And before long, we were going 50 miles an hour backwards, really fast down this hill, because once we started sliding, we just kept going. And the driver, luckily, the driver was really good. And there was a bank of mud along the side of the road. And so he turned the car so that the truck would go into the mud. And so we ended up ramming the mud and sinking the whole back of the truck into the mud. And it took about 2 hours to dig the truck out.
Wow.
But nobody got hurt. Amazingly, nobody got hurt. And we had 2 other vehicles at the bottom of the hill. And of course, when they saw us start to come down backwards, they backed up a long ways also, because they didn't know what was going to happen. So that was one time. And then another time it was actually when we worked at CEMEX, but it was when we were first looking into it, and you weren't there yet. And we had taken a boat down the river from Manaus, and we got off in the middle of the night, and we hired a truck to take us to Alter du Chien. And so we got on the truck, and this is, midnight or later, and there's no traffic on the road. No vehicles, just us going down the road. And the truck we had, the steering was a little bit loose. So the guy's going like this all the time, because the truck is kind of going like this. And then we see headlights coming. And so there's one car coming towards us, and it was a small truck. And you would think that with 2 cars, you could, go by. But that didn't happen. When we came together, the other truck hit the side of our truck, and it broke the mirror off, and glass went everywhere. And then the 2 truck drivers got out, and they were yelling at each other in the road. And, finally they gave up, and the other guy was drunk, and that's why he hit us. And of course, our truck, the steering was bad. And so, that could have been a very bad wreck, but it wasn't. But I also think probably the most miserable thing we ever did was take a ferry ride from Manaus to, where would it be? Anyway, from Manaus south or east on the river, and it was a 2-day boat ride, and there was a thief on the boat that kept stealing stuff from people. And we protected all of our stuff all the time, so nothing was stolen, but he was stealing things from people almost every night. And we stopped at a little town. They finally caught him, but he threw everything off the boat, so there was no evidence. And we got to a little town, and the boat driver threw him off the boat, and the police in the town wanted him back on the boat. They didn't want him, but we left him there. So, and one other thing that happened, when we worked on the Rio Xingu one time, we'd go up the river by boat, and we had a boat driver, and it was a small boat, and the river was really high. It was wet season, and there was a big waterfall right below our camp. And Jan, my wife, wanted to get a picture kind of over the falls, looking down. And so we asked the boat driver to get us a little closer to the falls. And so he drove the boat right out, in the center of the river, heading for the falls. And then the motor died. And so we're drifting towards the waterfall. And the boat guy's back there, just like this, just pulling on the motor, trying to get the motor to go again. And he finally got it started, and we barely got out. I mean, we came so close to going over that water.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun.
Many stories. Yeah, that's right. Okay, Laurie, it was very nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you and Rinus.
Leave other persons to talk.
Yeah.
Obrigado, TC, Marinos.
Obrigado, abraços.
Diretamente da Holanda. O Laurie está nos Estados Unidos, a TC na Holanda e nós aqui no Brasil, o Herpeto Sem Fronteiras. E agora, o que nós temos? Vamos buscar uma pergunta no chat, então?
Muitas perguntas vindo por lá, muitas perguntas, comentários.
Pode ler, Rodrigo. Vai lá.
A Nathalie Albuquerque nos pergunta, no estudo da biologia reprodutiva em lagartos, quais são os desafios e avanços a serem alcançados?
So, can you translate the last part of that?
Yes. Which are the next steps to study the reproductive biology? The next steps.
Yeah.
What should be done?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question because it's difficult to decide what the next step is. And, you know, the way that I've generally worked in the field is, you know, I study the animals for a long time in the field, and the animals tell me what the next questions might be. Just like with Brazilius skincus, when I worked on that, I was surprised that they had a placenta. I would have never known that, and so I think it's very difficult to determine what the direction is. But I do think that if enough reproductive data exists, it would be pretty darn interesting to do more analyses, you know, sort of meta-analyses like Danielle has been doing. But it requires more and more data. And the problem we have with reproductive data is that we have a lot of data on a small number of species, but we don't have a lot of data on most species. And so any data helps. And long-term data is even better. But so many species, and especially species in some of the families that don't occur in the New World, you know, it's families like Lacertids and some of the other families that are Old World families, chameleons, you know, all of those sorts of things. And it's been difficult to get enough data to do really good meta-analysis. And so just, you know, basic data is really worthwhile, but basic data, you know, it will not get you a publication in a really good journal. And so I think using phylogenies with reproductive data is one direction that I think things will go. But there are so many interesting questions about reproduction that, you know, we know very little about. You know, we don't know anything about hatchling survival, for example, or nest survival. How many of the nests that a lizard puts eggs in, how many of those are gotten by predators? And so, you know, there are a lot of questions, and universities, unfortunately, at least in this country, universities usually will not support long-term kinds of studies. And so, you know, I spent a year in the field
here in Brazil also.
Yeah, and, you know, that's really the way to learn a lot. And I did the same thing in Arizona when I was a grad student. I spent most of my time in the field. I don't like to sit down and write manuscripts and analyze data. You know, I do that, but I'd much rather be out in the field.
Yes.
Nice.
We have more questions there in YouTube. Guilherme. Some comments here. Próximo Congresso de Herpeto, queremos show do Laurie. I think you understood.
Yeah, when is the next one?
Good question.
Yeah.
Boa pergunta. Também não sabemos ainda.
It's a possibility as long as Guarino can convince me that I won't be arrested.
This is so good. Now I can listen to Laurie's song while reading his papers.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Honrados, Antônio Sebem, parabéns pela palestra, Laurie. Grande abraço.
Yeah. So no more questions?
Oh, there are more questions.
Nós temos
mais
convidado.
Perguntas.
Vamos, tem essa pergunta e depois vamos
no
trazer.
chat. Quais métodos o senhor indicaria para o estudo dos répteis associados a cupinzeiros?
Yeah, I think one thing that would be really neat to do, and we did some of this with Gymnodactylus, but there are so many nice little electronic devices now for measuring temperature. There are really small things that you can put on lizards now that'll track where they are and give temperature and that sort of thing. And I think using some of the technology to actually measure what goes on in different parts of these termite mounds and what the lizards actually do in there. And, this is one of those things that would require somebody really spending a lot of time, just getting to kind of see what's possible. A lot of times when I first look at something, in my mind, I think, is this possible? Can I really do any of this at all? And so with termite mounds, they're pretty darn interesting. And the other thing about them is that you can go around and break open a lot of them and find out what's in there. And we did a lot of that with Guarinu. And it's pretty neat what you find in them. There's a tarantula that lives in termite nests. There's a scorpion that lives in termite nests. There are big centipedes that live in termite nests. So you've got all of these animals in there along with lizards. And some of those animals could eat the lizards, like big scorpions, some of the big scolopendromorph centipedes, and so on. And so I would think if somebody's really interested in termite mounds and what goes in there, kind of a community study would be a really good one. Go around, find out what lives in all of them, and then try to learn something about all of the animals that live in them. And I know we have a lot of data from termite nests, and Guarinu would have that data. I probably do, but finding it might be difficult. But we broke into a lot of them, and there's some interesting things. You find blind snakes. We found Philodryas in termite mounds. A lot of different snakes use them, and then lizards, but some big arthropods. And I think understanding, the relationship between all of those things that use the termite nests, that would be really interesting, and that would be sort of a community ecology kind of study.
Legal.
Yeah.
Vamos trazer mais.
One other thing is, I think it's really easy to be narrow-minded when you start out. It's really easy to think, well, I'll study one species of lizard, and that if you get good data and so on, you might get something out of that. But I think you have to open your mind a little more. You have to really just kind of, I always say this, kind of just relax and see what's going on, and then see what you think you can do with that.
Ok. Vamos agora chamar o Leonardo para fazer uma pergunta ao vivo. Mais uma pergunta, Laurie.
Hello, Laurie. How's it going? Such an honor to talk with you, because since I was in graduation too, I read of your papers. Some ones even I use diapers you have produced it over there, and such a more honor because you, as in me, I'm an artist too from herpetology. Well, both of us are herpetologists and artists but I dance. I don't play music.
You don't. Well, for me, it's always an honor to talk to Brazilians. So, and it doesn't matter if they're beginning students or if they're people like Guarinu or Miguel or some of the people that I've known for many, many years. New students, it's just as exciting for me.
Thanks a lot. So my question is a brief question and not a tough question. But as your experience, what do you believe what do you consider as a main change in the research fields for ecology in lizards, and what the technology and the change between the years, like 80s, 90s, and 2000? What is the main changes and what we can use in our favor to help us to answer the questions that are displayed on the field or in the laboratory, as we have to research and to do for new papers?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. So if I go back to when I started out, if we wanted to measure the temperature of a lizard, we used a thermometer, and we'd stick the thermometer in the cloaca of the lizard. And I did that for many years. And now they have things that you can actually glue on to a lizard that will measure temperature and all kinds of things. And so some of the micro technology, I think, is going to be really important for ecological research on lizards, because now we can do a lot of things from the perspective of the lizard. When I think back many years, I'm out there watching the lizards. That's my perspective on the lizard. But if you can put something right on the lizard so that you don't have to actually see it, you can track it, you can get its temperatures all the time, continual temperatures and so on. That technology, to me, is just really exciting. And that technology kind of arrived, after I was doing most field work. And so I never used the microtechnology. I used some of the things like the temperature probes that we used in termite mounds. They would record temperature you could record stuff for a year if you wanted, with just one temperature recorder. And I've used those in the United States also. I think also the other thing that's really happened, when I first started out, people were not doing gene sequencing at all, and they weren't generating phylogenies based on genes. And all of the taxonomic work and so on back in those days was based on scale counts, those kinds of characters, osteological characters, and so on. And with modern phylogenetics with gene sequencing, it opens up just an enormous amount of potential research projects. And as I said earlier when I was talking to, I think, Guarino or maybe Danielle, you should never think of just doing a phylogeny for the purpose of doing a phylogeny, because it's not going to tell you a lot new, because everybody's already done that so many times. But using a phylogeny for looking at the evolution of ecological traits, we've done some of that. I've done some of that with Eric Pianka, and looking at the evolution of life history traits, like some of the stuff Danielle has done using phylogenetics. And we've done some stuff with diet, but there's a lot more that could be done. And then the biogeography stuff, to me, is that's just really exciting, because we're learning a lot about where things were, when they diverged, and where they went. And we were never able to do that before. And the gene sequencing and phylogenetics really tells us that. And especially now that we have these, they call them high flow through sequencers or whatever they are, where they can generate an entire genome. And that's really exciting to me. I think that's going to take us a lot of places. And and I'm always a skeptic a little bit, in that I think people are going to discover things about genes and things about how they're used that might surprise us a lot, and it might change some of the things. But if you've watched all of these different phylogenies that are generated, you know, as we get more data, we change what we think about it, and that's good. You know, look, people that criticize science because, well, you don't have a specific answer. Well, we do have a specific answer based on the data that we have. And if we get more data, we might change our specific answer a little bit. And that's good. That's good science. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, it's perfect. Thank you very much.
you're welcome. And good luck.
Obrigado, Léo.
Thank you very much, Laurie.
Agora vamos chamar o professor Bill Magnusson para fazer uma pergunta para você, Laurie.
Okay.
Vamos lá.
I have a question for you.
O Bill,
Oh, no sound. We're not getting sound.
tá com
Estamos com problemas.
Do we have sound yet?
Can you hear me now?
It's not very good.
Oh.
Talvez desligar o YouTube. Se você desliga o YouTube, ele só fica com esse.
I don't have anything else except this, I think.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay. Then I'll just get closer. Anyway.
Uh-oh, we lost you again. You sound like a rabbit.
Está difícil de escutar.
I can't hear you.
Não estamos escutando,
Yeah.
Bill.
É,
Tem alguma interferência.
tem uma interferência aí, não,
So,
não
Bill,
estamos
it's good to see
conseguindo
you, even
ouvir.
if I can't hear you.
É. Laurie disse que é legal, é bom ver o Bill, mas acho que não está conseguindo ouvir o que ele fala.
Bill vai mudar de
He
computador.
left. He's
He
gone.
will try
Bill
to find
vanished.
another
Another
computer.
computer.
Okay.
He will try to fix it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Bill for 20 years, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Okay.
back.
Not 20, maybe 15, 15 anos.
Yeah, maybe.
15 anos.
No sound yet.
Não
No
sound.
sound, no sound. Ó. É uma pena.
Vamos ver se o Bill escreve no... É. Ok. Vamos ver se tem alguma pergunta no chat, então, Guilherme. Para elogio.
Guilherme, que está sempre aí nos bastidores, que
Aqui.
organiza tudo para nós aqui. Que nós dois não sabemos mexer nessas coisas.
Não.
Thaís is sending a question here for you.
Okay.
Thank you for your lecture.
I actually lived in Yeshu for 1 year, only 1 year. And at first, it was scary because I didn't speak a word of Portuguese. And nobody in the town spoke English. And there were 3 other Americans, and they were working on mammals. And one of them spoke Portuguese more or less like mine now, because he had a girlfriend in Eshu, and he married her. He ended up marrying her. And I really liked the people once I got to know them, even though language was always a barrier for me there. But the people were really, really nice. And the food in Eshu was pretty bad. And, you know, the food that we cooked at our house was good, but, you know, it was pretty bad. And there are other things, you know, as an American, you know, first going to a remote place like Eshu and seeing things like the meat market, you know, where they just hang the meat outside and there are a million flies and there are dogs running around and everything else. You know, you would never see that in the United States. We have so many regulations, you couldn't possibly have that. But, you know, we bought our meat there. It was fine. There were never any problems.
Survive it.
Yeah, and there were some fazenda owners that were really nice, and they took us out to their land, and we collected a lot of stuff. And one time, this is a good story. When I worked in Atuou, the president of the Brazilian Academy of Sciences was Aristides Leon, and he was a physiologist and a really, really nice guy. And when I was in Atuou, one time he visited. He actually had a driver, and the driver drove him from Rio to Pernambuco. And I wanted to get on a really big fazenda. And so Aristides and I drove out to this fazenda, and he got out and he started talking to the fazenda owner. And, the fazenda owner said, "Oh, I'll make some coffee." So, Aristides is talking to him, and Aristides was really good at talking to people and, trying to, negotiate things and so on. So we sat down on the porch and started talking, and then a girl from inside the house came out, and there was a pool of water in the road because it had rained a couple of days before that. So there was water in the road, and we had just driven through it, so it was muddy water. And she got a pan and got water out of that pool, went in and heated it, and made coffee. And the coffee tasted just like mud. Tasted like dirt. It was horrible. And Aristides drank that coffee and smiled and talked to this guy. and in the end, I was able to work there as much as I wanted. So Atuou, it was a difficult place for some reasons, but the people and everything, all of that was just fantastic. The only strange thing that happened is, I think about the last month that I was there was a famous Brazilian singer that was from there. He did folk songs, and I might remember his name in a minute. But he would come every once in a while, and we were using an abandoned agriculture school, and this Luis Gonzaga. So he showed up one day, and he came up and he said, "You're going to have to move out of here because I'm taking it over." And so we said, "No, we're not moving out." And he was really mad at us, but apparently he talked to the local Polícia Federal, and they said, "No, you're not taking that land." So, that was our one interaction with Luis Gonzaga.
Nice.
Então agora, eu acho que o Bill conseguiu. Vamos ver se o Bill consegue falar novamente.
Eu não sei, vê se você pode ouvir.
Pode
ouvir?
Sim. Então, pode fazer.
Okay, yeah. I think it's a mixture of the computer and and our system here in Manaus.
Yeah. Good to see you,
anyway,
Bill.
I don't really have a question for you. I just wanted to congratulate you on those beautiful photographs throughout your presentation.
Oh,
They were so beautiful. That's why I took time to come in. I had to go and throw out my camera.
Yeah. I have more than 20,000 photographs, and I have them all organized, and I've gone through all of them. The ones that I sent to different places in Brazil, that was just a sample, and I think I sent about 1,000.
Do you have somewhere that you can make them permanently available?
I didn't understand that.
Do you have somewhere that you can make them permanently available?
I suppose the original scans are at the museum in Oklahoma, and they have most of my photographs. And then I've tried to find good ones of every species, and send them to different Brazilian museums so that they'd be available in Brazil. And they are, the photos that I sent to Fernanda and to the other museums in Brazil, they're available to anybody who wants to use them. You don't have to ask me to use them. I sent them there so that people could use them. And if you haven't seen them, you might, you know, for the people that have not seen what I sent, I think that if you email Fernanda, for example, or any of the museums that I sent them to, they can send an Excel file that will have a list of all the species. And then if you want to look at any of the photos, you know, you can just ask them for them. I think that's the easiest thing to do. But, you know, I have a lot of photos of every species I've photographed. And I probably have 50 photographs of corallus, for example, because I always take a lot of photographs. And the last few years that I worked in Brazil, I finally had digital cameras, and so that makes the photos a lot better. You know, when I was using film, some of those are not very good, and the scans aren't very good, you know, but I still have all of those. So I think I think to get all of them, the only place would be the Sam Noble Museum. I could at some point, if I go through and eliminate all the you know, photos that are bad that I have, I might make the entire set available, and I could probably do that through Dropbox. You know, if there was somewhere in Brazil where somebody wanted all of them, to have them all in one place. Yeah, I hate to lose all of those, and you know, I've talked to a lot of people about that, and the problem is that it's, you know, it's a lot of photos. 20,000, 22,000 actually.
Have
So
you
how have you
thought
been,
of
Bill?
uploading them to iNaturalist?
Yeah. So you got COVID, didn't you, Bill?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
You still can't hear me.
Yeah. You were sick with COVID, weren't you, Bill?
Oh yes. I had COVID a couple of times, and I've had vaccination, which the vaccination made me feel worse than the times that I caught COVID after the first one. So if anybody's vaccinated, it's me.
Yeah. So which vaccine did you get? Do you know which vaccine? Oh, what vaccine? Did you get Moderna or Pfizer or?
No, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Ok,
That's okay.
it's ok. Bill, obrigado pela participação.
Yeah.
Obrigado.
Good to see you, Bill.
Esperamos vê-lo aqui em breve.
Olha, comentou que o Bill está usando o código Morse, só que muito rápido.
Obrigado, Bill.
Yeah. Yeah, Bill helped us out many times in Brazil.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Temos mais alguma pergunta para finalizar, Guilherme, no chat? Comentário? E aí depois temos a grande atração, não é? Depois desta pergunta temos música. Não é isso?
Pergunta, então, Gedeão Tomás Santos Pereira pergunta: as almofadas na ponta da cauda dos ligodáctilos Klugei têm utilidade prática?
Yeah, I think I understand the question. One of the things that I observed with Ligodactylus is that when they're sitting on a branch, the tail is against the branch. And if you grab the lizard by the body, you know, or get your finger around and hold it down, the tail is still sticking to the branch, and they'll autotomize, they'll lose the tail. And the tail wiggles around like crazy and is a distraction. And so I think the use of the pads on the tail are actually to help predator escape, that it allows them, when lizards lose their tails, they do it. They contract the muscles and lose the tail. It's not pulled off. It's the lizard itself does it. And so they have total control over the tail. And I think that's how it's used. I observed that once, and that would be worth, spending some time watching those geckos. And, you could experiment pretty easily with something like that. So I think I answered that.
Yeah. Ok. E agora, vamos ouvir uma música?
Sure. I will, let me move back here, and we'll see how it works.
Agora vocês verão a grande atração sonora aqui no Herpeto Sem Fronteiras.
This puts me way back here.
O Laurie está se preparando para cantar uma música em homenagem aos herpetólogas brasileiros e brasileiras.
So I'm going to do a song by, let's see, by Chris Stapleton, and we'll see if you like it. And I'm sure the sound will be bad from a computer, but such is life. Takes me back in time, and I are you listening to? Is it a cover band and some Alabama? Or is memory miles hitting up guitars and music? Something to get you through. Just a sad song playing on the radio station. Tears still falling, hearts still breaking, 'cause you're hanging on. There's a love song about someone new. What are you listening to? I'd like to believe, and you're just like me, trying to figure out the things goes there. I can't let it go. It's about to drive me there. Are you listening to? Is it a cover band and some Alabama? Or is never enough in here to tell us something to get you through? It's a sad song playing on the radio station. Tears still falling, hearts still breaking, 'cause you're hanging on. There's a love song about someone new. What are you listening to? Is it a field of good song that you're trying to pass. The one that gets you right on past the path. Or the cat you can't help singing along, singing along. Instead of headphones on the damn round train, or the window seat on an outbound plane, or is it out in sunny, up in from school? I wish I knew, I wish I knew what you listening to. Is it in the color band and turn right down, or the turn around in every guitar? Something to get you through. Just a sad song playing on the radio station. Tears still falling, heart still breaking, 'cause you're hanging on a little love story about someone new. What are you listening to? Girl, you know what's so. How I play again and again. How's that? I've lost all